I don't care that the UTAT isn't happening. It's a vehicle with under a minute of screen time and only showed up once. I don't get why people are making such a big deal about it. And I'm not gonna lie, this is a pretty valid take, although I definitely disagree with it. The main reason people are talking about this so much is because LEGO went so far to make Galactic Marines, but they're not going the extra little step to put them in a UTAT. They're for some reason putting them in a turbo tank, which is nice. I mean, the community has wanted a new turbo tank for years. It's just a bit strange to put Galactic Marines with it, and it really just doesn't make much sense on LEGO's end. It kind of seems like they're trolling. And about the vehicle only having under a minute of screen time, I for one don't really think that matters, and I don't think many other people think that matters either, because one, it's fairly popular and it looks unique, and it's one of the only Republic vehicles we haven't gotten in LEGO form, and it clearly has a pretty outlandish design that would simply just look cool as a LEGO set. But also at the same time, from what I've seen, LEGO Star Wars fans usually adore the weird one-off sets, whether that be some random Clone Wars vehicle that was only seen in one episode for 30 seconds, or some super outlandish Legends set that most people don't even know where it came from. So if people enjoy sets like that, I think they'd love the UTAT. And again, it also just seems strange that LEGO went so far to make Galactic Marines, but they're not going so far to make the actual vehicle they're seen with. But hey, since we're getting a turbo tank with Galactic Marines, maybe in the next 5 years we'll get a UTAT with Kashyyyk Troopers. The clone turbo tank is going to sell much better than a UTAT ever would, because the majority of kids would rather have a giant clone car than a UTAT. And I'm not gonna lie, strictly on paper, this statement is most likely true. However, with the execution of the turbo tank that just released, I don't think it's true. I think a UTAT would be selling a lot better than this set is right now. Now obviously we can't get the complete data of LEGO sales, but we can look on sites like Amazon and see how sets are selling on there, and as you can see here, this turbo tank says 400 sold in the past month, which is pretty terrible for the standards of a large LEGO Star Wars playset. I mean, if we go ahead and take a look at the Ghost and Phantom 2 on Amazon, which is the exact same price as the turbo tank, it says 7,000 bought in the past month versus the turbo tank's 400. And I mean, not even to mention this set is on shelves alongside sets like the 2022 AET, which is a lot bigger, has more pieces, and is $20 cheaper. And when a parent sees these two sets on shelves next to each other, 9 times out of 10, they're gonna go for the ATTE, or something else like the Coruscant Guard gunship maybe. I think for most people that aren't diehard collectors, this turbo tank is really the last option. So if LEGO made a UTAT, I do think it would be selling better than this specific turbo tank. But if this turbo tank was better, your comment's probably accurate. Thomas Vienna says, hot take, the upcoming Smart Brick sets will do surprisingly well in sales, and maybe the beginning of a new STEM-based sub-theme that will cross into multiple IPs within LEGO. And I've actually seen quite a few people making this claim, saying that the Smart Brick sets are probably going to sell better than we're expecting them to. And you know, obviously we haven't seen any of these sets yet in their entirety, so it's really impossible to tell who's going to be right or wrong, but I still personally think they're not going to sell well. First of all, every time LEGO has tried to incorporate technology into their sets, it's just gone downhill, especially in Star Wars with like that Droid Commander set from 2019, I think it was, that I guarantee most of you guys forgot about or just never knew existed. And then on top of that, I think one of the main reasons people buy LEGO in the first place is because it's really one of the best hobbies still left that's an escape from technology. And I just think that every time LEGO tries to incorporate technology into their sets, it's just gonna fail. The only time they ever really did this successfully was with Mindstorms and then detecting motors that they used in various sets like the walking AT-AT. But with these Smart Bricks, man, I don't know. I don't have very high hopes for them. I honestly think this upcoming March wave is gonna go down as probably one of the worst LEGO Star Wars waves of all time, and it's gonna cause a lot of commotion within the community for a short period, and then it's probably gonna be forgotten about and swept under the rug because no one's gonna be buying these. There was no way to make the Death Star GWP good. I've seen some people complain that the TIE Fighter should have been included in the set and not be a GWP, but then people would have complained if you couldn't add it to the set. Fans would complain either way. And yeah, this is just simply not true. First off, the reason people say that the TIE Fighter should have been included in the Death Star is because without the TIE Fighter and the extra stormtroopers that come with it, the Death Star on its own feels very incomplete, which for the first ever $1,000 LEGO set is very bad to say the least. So the set on its own really needed this TIE Fighter and the figures that came with it just to make you even come close to feel like you're getting your money's worth. But instead, it was a completely separate thing that's not even available anymore. And second, there's plenty of other options they could have went with for a GWP that would have been a lot better. And no, I don't think people would complain about these. I think the best option would have been making the GWP a different TIE variant at the same scale, like either a Darth Vader's TIE Advanced or maybe a TIE Interceptor that you could switch out with the TIE Fighter that should have been included in the set for a different display option. And if not that, it could have been something like the entire Hot Tub Stormtrooper scene, or maybe even like a miniature Millennium Falcon to replace the Imperial Shuttle. But instead, it's almost like they had the complete set and then they decided to just slice off a chunk of it, which was the TIE Fighter, and then called that the GWP and make it exclusive, when in reality, it should be part of the set. John Lucas Allen one says, probably not very hot take, microfighters are pretty useless and badly designed sets. Instead, they should be replaced by miniature ships similar to those that came with the planets in a minifigure years ago. And well, actually, I think this is actually a hot take. I think a lot of people like microfighters, myself included. Now, I think your comment can apply to mechs. I think those sets are useless and poorly designed. However, microfighters, especially the recent ones, are really awesome. I mean, Plo Koon Jedi Starfighter is genuinely one of my favorite sets that released in 2025, and because of that set, I really want to see other Jedi Starfighter microfighters. I think Anakin's would work really well, Obi-Wan's would work really well, and then maybe some like Ahsoka's or Mace Windu's would also work really well. Rex's Y-Wing is another good microfighter, even though Rex the minifigure itself kind of sucks, the actual set as a whole is pretty good. And then even going all the way back to the very first microfighters like the Turbo Tank, I think that one is awesome. So yeah, I disagree with this one, and I actually think it is a hot take. I'm pretty sure a lot of people like microfighters. Despite episode 3 being my favorite Star Wars movie, it has had the weakest sets out of episode 1 through 6. Episodes 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 have better sets for their movies. And while I definitely disagree with you, I would never say episode 3 has the weakest sets among all the original movies. I do understand where you're coming from, and I do understand why someone might think this. Compared to episode 1 and 2, episode 3 doesn't really seem to have that one S-tier standout kind of trophy set. For instance, episode 1 has the 2007 NTT, and then episode 2 has the 2013 gunship. You could say episode 3's trophy set is like the 2005 Turbo Tank or maybe the Ultimate Space Battle, but I personally think those two sets don't really hold up to the MTT or the 2013 gunship. And then of course the original trilogy obviously gets all the UCS sets. So again, it does make sense as to why you'd think episode 3 has the weakest sets. I mean, I've kind of thought this too, because there really isn't that one standout trophy set. However, it does have a very consistent lineup of great play sets. From all the sets we got in 2005 to all the sets we got in 2014, the consistency with episode 3's play sets is pretty impressive, so that's why I would never say it has the weakest lineup out of all the original 6 movies. But like I said, it doesn't have that one standout set like episode 1 and 2, but honestly, the reason for that is just because all these sets are so consistent that there isn't really one that stands out from the rest because they're all comparably so good. I don't think the newer sets, while overpriced, aren't as overpriced as people think, and a lot of the prices actually make sense to me. And well, I'm glad they make sense to you, but they don't make sense to me or a lot of other people either. And actually, I just made an entire video objectively proving these sets are overpriced, because I mean, they are. The battle pack is about $23 higher than it should be, the MTT is about $40 higher than it should be, and the Turbo Tank's about $50 higher than it should be. And this is all objectively proven in that video I made a few days ago, so you can go ahead and watch that if you want to. This next one comes from Slipback Check. He says, hot take, the 2018 Solo Millennium Falcon is the worst playscale Millennium Falcon in the last 20 years. I don't like the colors or the front with that weird thing. And dude, like, I like that set a lot. I don't agree with you on this. I mean, is it even comparable to the other playscale Millennium Falcons? Like, obviously it's the same ship, but it's also so different. It's white and blue and like has a different shape because of the thing in the front that you mentioned. And I don't know, I just think it's cool and unique. I think it's an awesome set. I've always thought that. I say this all the time, but getting a Lego Star Wars set that's colorful like this is always fun to me, because as we all know, Lego Star Wars sets are gray for the most part. And I know this is kind of a cliche narrative, but it's true. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, a lot of the coolest Lego Star Wars sets are gray, but still getting a massive playset like this that's blue and white and kind of stands out is just cool to me. Umizumi says, hot take, Lego should only make one UCS set a year to make more room for playscale sets. The majority of UCS sets do not cut it with the amount of minifigures. Paying hundreds of dollars for 1 to 4 minifigures, though there are some exceptions, is criminal. They should just make one 400 plus UCS set with 8 to 15 minifigs a year and release more playscale sets. And well, there's kind of a lot of weak points with your argument here. The first and most obvious one is that Lego Star Wars UCS sets are about the builds and not the minifigures, and they've always been that way. They've always been known as a massive display piece, so the fact that most of the time they only include 1 or 2 minifigures is fine. However, if you want to get into Master Builder Series sets like the Cantina or the Cloud City, that's a different story. But then I feel like another weak point for your argument is that Lego only releases 2 UCS sets a year, so they're not really a problem. The sets that are really taking up slots for more play sets are sets like the helmets, the dioramas, the midi-scale sets, and especially the buildable characters, because we get so many of those. And then also, not to mention, UCS sets came out in 2000, the second year of Lego Star Wars, so that pretty much makes them like the OG sub-theme. UCS was the first sub-theme of Lego Star Wars. So in my head, when talking about sub-themes that Lego needs to cancel, UCS is the only one that can't go. If they cancel a sub-theme, or at least make less of a sub-theme, it should be one like buildable characters, helmets, midi-scale, etc. It definitely should not be UCS sets. UCS sets should all be minifig scale, minus maybe capital ships and the Death Stars. The oversized starfighters are not good. And well, this might sound surprising to you, but I've actually been seeing people say this for years at this point, and I'm responding to it not because I think it's a hot take, it's because, not to be a jerk, I think it's kind of a ridiculous take. So obviously, as we all know, UCS sets are the most expensive sets that LEGO makes for Star Wars. So because of that, their target audience and their consumer base is a lot smaller than the target audience and the consumer base of cheaper sets and play sets. Because, you know, the average person can't just casually drop hundreds of dollars on a LEGO set, which means that LEGO has to limit UCS sets to the most popular vehicles in Star Wars, like the Millennium Falcons, the Death Stars, the Star Destroyers, the Super Star Destroyers, and then of course the oversized starfighters like you mentioned. So that right there already makes the options of UCS sets pretty limited, and the oversized starfighters like you mentioned happen to be some of the most popular ships in Star Wars. So then if LEGO was to remove those from the lineup of UCS sets, that would make the options even more limited than they already are. And that's just one problem with this. The other problem is that these oversized starfighters that you mentioned are also the cheaper UCS sets. They're the ones that cost, you know, $200 to $300 and are already relatively more affordable. The ones that are actually minifigure scale are the super expensive ones, like the $800 Millennium Falcon, the $800 AT-AT, the $600 Razor Crest, the $500 Sail Barge. The minifigure scale ones are the expensive ones, besides like maybe the UCS Slave 1, and obviously they can't just release a new UCS Slave 1 every year. And then not even to mention, all of the play scale starfighters are already minifigure scale. The play scale X-Wings and TIE Fighters, the play scale Y-Wings, the play scale V-19 Torrent, the play scale ARC 170, the play scale Jedi Interceptor, I could go on. All of those sets are already minifigure scale as play sets. So then it's like, what do you want LEGO to do? Just release a $70 X-Wing and then slap a 18 plus black box art on it and call it a UCS set? And then also, I mean, the oversized UCS starfighters are just cool sets in general. I'm always going to defend them. I don't really care that they're oversized and can't fit minifigures on the inside because they're just awesome display pieces. Over the past 10 years, LEGO has been so consistent with them. I mean, I honestly don't really even think their sets LEGO can mess up at this point. And I mean, you really got to own one and actually have it on display to know how good they are. And I mean, if you're someone that does own one and you still don't like them, I guess that's your opinion, that's valid. But if you don't own one and you're hating on them, I just think that's kind of unreasonable. Like, don't knock it till you try it, you know? So I mean, yeah, if LEGO removed these oversized UCS starfighters from the UCS set lineup, it would just cause so many more negative effects than people realize, because again, it would limit the options of UCS sets, it would remove the cheap UCS sets, and if they actually made them minifigure scale and called them UCS sets, that would just be pointless because the play scale sets are already minifigure scale. I mean, realistically at this point, I think LEGO has come close to just running out of options when it comes to UCS minifigure scale sets. The only ones I can think of off the top of my head that they still might do is like a minifigure scale ATTE at like $300 maybe. A minifigure scale Kylo Ren's command shuttle would probably work really well. I think a minifigure scale U-Wing might work. I also think a minifigure scale MTT might work, even though that would probably be like a $500 set, so I don't know. And then I'll go out on a limb and say like maybe Darth Maul's Sith Infiltrator. But other than those, I mean, they've kind of just run out of options for minifigure scale UCS sets. Because like I mentioned earlier, UCS sets have to be very, very popular vehicles. So like they can't just be making any ship in Star Wars a UCS set. It has to be something that's very, very iconic. And no, I don't mean iconic within the LEGO community like a UTAT. I mean iconic to Star Wars fans and the Star Wars fan base as a whole, not just the small bubble of the LEGO community. Clone wastegapes should be a dual mold on the legs instead of cloth because LEGO isn't making cloth pieces for other clothes. Like if a minifigure is wearing a shirt, they're not going to make a cloth shirt, so what is the difference about wastegapes? And you'd actually be surprised how many people comment this, either dual molded leg wastegapes or wastegapes that are printing all the way around the legs of the figure. So I guess I'll just go ahead and respond to both of those ideas. The difference between a wastecape or a camo compared to like if a minifigure has a shirt on, like you said, is, well, this wasn't a problem or an issue that was ever brought up in the past when LEGO did wastegapes then, so they can still do them now. That is definitely a way to think of it. However, I mean, if LEGO made wastegapes in the past, there's no problem with them making them today. But more importantly, what you said about making them dual molded legs, or like when other people say they should be printing that goes all the way around the figure. First of all, LEGO's not going to do this because from what I know, doing either wraparound printing or dual molded legs is more expensive than just making wastegapes, especially since they've done them in the past and they also do it for other figures and other themes. And then second, because, well, they're stingy. They couldn't give us dual molded legs in a $1,000 Death Star, so what makes you think they're going to do it in a battle pack that costs 20 bucks? And then also on top of that, now that they've made the new pauldron piece, as good as that new piece does look, and as happy as I am that it's a step in the right direction, it does look kind of awkward to not have a wastecape to complement it, because when you have a clone trooper with a big pauldron at the top and then a printed wastecape at the bottom, it makes its proportions look a bit out of whack. If I remember right, when these pauldron pieces first first came out, I compared them to a football player wearing giant pads, and that's honestly just how it looks to me. So as good as this new Polytron piece does look, I do think it needs a waist cape, a physical waist cape to complement it. I mean, no matter what they do, printed waist cape on the front, wraparound printing on the sides and the back, or even dual-bolted legs, none of it's gonna work. The only solution is a physical waist cape. The UCS Republic gunship is the best UCS set ever made, and while that set is definitely good, I wouldn't go so far to say it's the best UCS set of all time. Of course, this is subjective, but there are UCS sets that I think are better, like the AT-AT, the Venator, the Razor Crest, the Imperial Shuttle, just to name a few. While this set is good, it looks incredible. I mean, I could definitely see it being a top 5 UCS set. I still just think there are some that are better than it, and therefore I don't think it's the best of all time. David B says, hot take, the Bad Batch Shuttle is the best $100 LEGO Star Wars set of all time. And I mean, it's a solid set. It's never really jumped out to me like some others, but I can appreciate it. The whole build was kind of the wrong color, but it still does look pretty good. However, in terms of the best $100 LEGO Star Wars set of all time, I would definitely not go that far. There's a lot of sets off the top of my head that I can think of that retail for $100 that are better than this one. The first one obviously being the 2007 MTT. I mean, that's probably the most iconic $100 set ever made, but you could make the argument that that set is outdated. So on top of that, if you don't like the 2007 MTT, you have sets like the 2015 Imperial Shuttle, the 2009 Battle of Endor, the 2017 Jedi Starfighter with hyperdrive, BD-1 from 2022, the Inquisitor Transport Scythe from 2022, the Mandalorian Fang Fighter versus the TIE Interceptor, even the UCS Obi-Wan's Jedi Starfighter from 2010. I think all of those sets are better than the Bad Batch Shuttle, and honestly, I could go on. So again, yeah, this set's cool, but in terms of the best $100 LEGO Star Wars set ever made, I have to disagree with you on that one. Hot take, we need at least one Acolyte set. I don't even care if you like the show or not, a Stranger minifigure is a need. And I mean, yeah, I guess I'll admit that getting a Stranger minifigure would be kind of cool. Not because he's a good character in any way, I mean, there's nothing about that show that I liked, but only because he has a cool helmet, and I think that'd look cool in LEGO form. But like at the same time, as cool as that would be, it also wouldn't be worth it, because for LEGO to make this figure, they'd obviously have to make an entire Acolyte set. And first of all, I don't think there's a single thing from that show that would even sell good as a LEGO set. And second of all, it wouldn't be worth it because it would take up a spot for what could be a better set. And honestly, anything would be a better set than a set from this show. So like, while getting a Stranger minifigure would be cool, it just wouldn't be worth it. The opportunity cost just wouldn't be good. So yeah, I guess I'd like this character as a figure, but at the same time, I don't care that we don't have one, and I don't care if we never get one. No Turbo Tank has been good, just the new one is so bad, it makes the 2010 look godly. And while I actually like how the new Turbo Tank looks, I mean, I've said this time and time again, but just from an aesthetic standpoint, it just looks pretty appealing to me at least. But that's obviously ignoring all the bad things about the set, like the price, the minifigures, and the structural integrity. Just the looks alone are pretty solid to me again. But I would never say that no Turbo Tank has been good. I think if you're looking for a really solid playset that has tons of features, the 2010 is pretty much right up your alley. And I think if you're looking for a very screen accurate and nice and compact model, the 2016 one comes in hand really nicely. Or if you just have nostalgia bias and want something retro, obviously the 2005 one is right up your alley. So yeah, no, I would never say that none of the Turbo Tanks have been good. I think really the newest one is the only one that's been actually bad. And in my opinion, I think the 2016 one is the best just because of its accuracy and its detail and its minifigures, and then the 2010 one is right behind it as second.